Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here. Today is Tuesday, the 3rd of December, 2019. We're heading toward Christmas time. I'm going to tell you what. This system that's running right now, the financial system, is completely over-leveraged. It's going to deleverage. But it's not going to deleverage in a deflationary way. It's going to deleverage in a hyperinflationary way. But that's going to deleverage the system because eventually they're going to hit the point where money's absolutely worthless. This is going to drive adoption into cryptocurrencies and gold and silver, but mostly cryptocurrencies are going to really benefit from this because I've said this before, you guys probably listening, that the first beneficiary is going to be gold and silver, but it's limited. It's so limited in supply, it's going to sell out. It's going to be gone. And so what's left? People are going to go for cryptocurrencies for a number of reasons. One, you can transmit it across the internet, fits in with the modern age. And like gold and silver, Bitcoin and Litecoin are very limited in supply and they have to be mined. So it's going to be a beneficiary, but there's going to be some strange things happen moving into this new monetary system and into this new world. Basically, this is going to be so bad, this crisis, that it's going to move us like into a new world, a world we're not familiar with. And this is going to have a very profound effect on how we get around. First off, infrastructure. Infrastructure's already went into decay. Now, some of you guys wonder, what's infrastructure? Infrastructure is everything that they've built. Bridges, highways, even in our cities, city streets. A lot of it has to do with whenever they pour cement. That's infrastructure. Pour big time amounts of cement. You know, the cement sits there for a few years, and it starts to get expansion cracks where the cold and heat contract, and the cement first it cracks, and then little plants start to grow in the crack, and then they expand, and the roots push down, and it makes the cracks bigger. And the next thing you know, you got potholes, and you got this is decay of infrastructure. So they have to come along and put in a new bridge or a new highway because of the decay. Well, when this system deleverages, the money's not going to be there for an awful lot of things. And so they're going to have to pump money in. Like one of the things that's basically going to collapse is the states are already starting to collapse. Just take a look at Detroit. You know? It's already started. You know, and the states are going to all start to run out of money. And so they're not going to be able to keep up their infrastructure. State and federal governments are just going to not have the money. And so they're going to print the money, but that ain't going to really work because this is going to cause more hyperinflation. And in a hyperinflation, infrastructure decays just like because it costs like 1 ounce of gravel will cost $1 million. I mean, it gets ridiculous in the end, you know? And then they have to reset the currencies and everything. This is what we're headed toward. We're headed toward a world that's going to be completely foreign to us. So what I'm going to talk about in this episode now that I've set the stage for you guys, I'm going to talk about how we get around our transportation in the future. Future transportation. Now, I've already did episodes on what it's going to be like for homelessness and stuff like that. But now we're going to talk about future transportation for people that say an awful lot of farming is going to change. The way we do farming. Big agriculture, big companies that buy off acres and acres and miles of farmland and put in big farms that run all on diesel and everything else. This is going to go into a decay as well, and there are going to be more small farms popping up. 20, 30, 100-acre size farms popping up. People are going to move more into rural agricultural, more earth-friendly, more environmentally friendly. That's what's going to happen in the future. And so we're going to see cars moving in the same direction. Now, I want to point something out to you guys about cars. You ever wonder why you got this big automobile that weighs 4,000 pounds to support your little body, and take you down to the store or whatever. 4,000 pounds of steel, right? And you might have a bicycle in the garage. Well, the bicycle will do the same thing, but you can pick it up with one hand. It only weighs 20 pounds. What's going on here? How come it takes a big 4,000 pound car to move you down to the store, and a bicycle can do the same thing? Why can the little skinny bicycle tires can support they can support an amazing amount of weight, considering how small and lightweight they are, in comparison to your car? You know, most family cars can only support 960 pounds on those great big heavy tires and that great big heavy frame and everything else that goes with it, like 4,000 pound machine, and it'll only support 960 pounds. Now, if we work out the ratio of weight to how much that vehicle can actually carry, the ratio is very poor. If we work out the ratio on a bicycle, how much the bicycle weighs to how much weight it carries, the ratio is very excellent. Something's going on here. Something strange. Why can the spoke tire, with a little skinny, smaller tire, much smaller, it has a much smaller, what's the word I'm looking for, footprint. It has a much smaller footprint. Can support so much more weight per pound than the standard car tire that we have. Because, yeah, you know, if you put more than 960 pounds in your car, the tires are going to get squishy. The springs are going to get squishy. You might even break a spring. But now, we could create a car that would have a light tubular steel frame, or maybe a square tubing frame, and would have these spoke-type tires like a bicycle, except maybe a little bit heavier, maybe more in like a motorcycle-type tire. Right? And it could support the same amount of weight, but the whole vehicle wouldn't weigh maybe 300 or 400 pounds instead of 4,000 pounds. So the vehicle weighs 1/10 the weight of the big monstrosities we have now, but it's able to support as much weight as the monstrosities we have now. These behemoths that we have now, that take a lot of steel to build them. I mean, they weigh 4,000 pounds, 4,000 pounds of steel. No wonder it costs so much, right? With these little lightweight running on basically a tire, the way I envision it, the tire would be something in between a motorcycle and a bicycle. A little bit heavier, a little bit stronger, a little bit thicker spokes than a bicycle, a little bit more rubber, but still maybe not as big and heavy as a full-size motorcycle. Somewhere in between, right? It'd have 4 wheels, and the suspension. They're already making these vehicles, by the way, but they're not quite the way I envision them. But they're already working on the general idea. Individual suspension on each wheel. In other words, an arm. The wheel is connected to a suspension arm. And so it's independent suspension on each wheel. So if you go over a bump or a pothole, now why we're going to need these vehicles is because as the infrastructure goes into decay, we're going to need something. Speed is not going to be an issue anymore. You're not going to be able to go fast because you're not going to know what obstacles are in the road. Now, you go down to the States right now. There's a lot of states you're going to drive through where they just do not have the money to not only pave the roads or even fix the potholes, they don't even have the money to trim to mow the sides of the road. In a lot of states now, it's just completely running out of money. It's going to get worse and worse. So we're going to be facing highways where you can't go fast. Speeds are going to be reduced. They're going to have to be reduced. They'll try to maintain a lane for trucks. And they'll try to keep it paved so the trucks can still deliver food to our stores and stuff in the future. I see this happening. But The rest of the 4-lane highway, the outer lane, is probably going to be full of potholes and bumps, and the truck's not going to want to go on there, because the only lane that's going to be, we're only going to be able to probably afford to pave 1 lane on our 4-lane highways, the trucker lane, because that's essential. We have to get those trucks to store, and they have to move at full speed. It's probably going to be the only really high-speed vehicles left, is the big trucks, still running at 65 miles an hour. Everybody else is going to be reduced to probably a top speed of 50 miles an hour. And you're going to be taking your life in your hands to go 50 miles an hour in the future, because there's going to be so many things that you can run into that 50 miles an hour. See, we don't realize nowadays. We go speeding down the highway at 70, 80 miles an hour, and we don't realize what kind of speed that is, because we've got smooth highways that have been paved in the good years, where we built up all of this debt expansion that we're going to pass off to our kids. Well, it's all going to burst. And when it bursts, our highways are just going to get worse and worse over the next few years. So these vehicles are going to be absolutely essential. The vehicles I'm talking about. Because first off, fuel prices are going to be extremely exorbitant. The United States is a big oil producer right now, but they're producing from wells that are going to start to run dry because they're fracking wells. And oil is going to be left to Saudi, and they're going to be able to basically set the price wherever they want it. So we're probably going to be looking at extremely high fuel prices. Electricity is an alternative. So a lot of these vehicles I'm talking about are going to be electric, but they're going to have limited range, probably like 100 miles or something like that, 50 miles, whatever. Depends on the vehicle you buy and depends on the batteries. But now we've got new batteries coming in that's going to enable them to go a bit further. You know, we got new batteries that coming in also that allows more cycles of charging before you need to replace the battery. Some of these new batteries got like 20,000 cycles, so they'll last the entire life of the vehicle. Probably at top speed 30 miles an hour. Most people are probably going to be reduced to driving at 30 miles an hour in the future. You're just going to have to get up a little bit earlier if you want to get there on time. This is the way it's going to be. And an awful lot of people are going to use these for farm vehicles and stuff like that. They're going to be very comfortable because of the 4-wheel independent suspension and 4-wheel disc brakes. You're going to be able to stop fast. The brakes are probably not going to be hydraulic. They're probably going to be cable-type brakes, a cable braking system. It'll be much simpler to work on these cars. So the way I see it, they already have these cars in development. They've already been working on them. I see them building a lightweight chassis to go on top of the car made out of things like different kinds of plastics and different kinds of using different kinds of lightweight fiberglasses and different kinds of carbon composites, and to make a chassis that 2 men, one can stand on either side, remove 4 or 5 bolts and lift the entire chassis off the car. And the chassis will have your windshield and your roof and everything, and have everything you need to keep you from getting wet when you're driving down the highway, or to keep the wind from blowing on you. Kind of like the cars we have now, and they'll have little heaters inside them and stuff. It's not going to be that bad, really. These are going to be nice cars, fairly nice. But one of the real advantages of them is going to be able to work on them. They're going to be so much easier to work on than the cars we have now. Because all of these computerize this and computerize that is going to be gone. These newer cars are going to be a car that you can work on yourself. It's going to be a car that you don't have to worry about when you, like the cars we have now. If you do want to work on it yourself, you got to worry about the thing falling on you. The one wheel can crush you. These new cars, the whole thing could fall on you, and you're not going to get hurt because the whole thing doesn't weigh that much. You can pick it up. You want to replace a tire? You don't need a jack with these new cars. If you're a reasonably strong man, you can grab a hold of that front end and lift the entire tire off of the ground yourself. It'd be like two guys out together on a run, you know, and they're going someplace to get some groceries or whatever. And the guy says, "Oh no, I got a flat tire." He says, "That's no problem." He hops out of the car and he lifts it up and holds it for the other guy while he takes the wheel off. That's what our new cars are going to be like. They're going to be so much more functional. And these big behemoths we're driving now, they get stuck so easy. And they can't go over any obstacles or anything like that. These newer cars are going to be able to, if the road's washed out and the county's not fixing it, these cars we have now, these behemoths, you're done. You ain't going to go through the washout where the road's washed out. But these new vehicles, you'll be able to slow the thing right down and put it in first gear, and you'll be able to crawl. It'll crawl over the washout very slowly and come up on the other side, you know, and then drive off and drive right through the washout. This is the kind of vehicles we need. An infrastructure decay. And there's an old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When a need arises for something, that's when these inventors will really get to work making a vehicle that's suitable for that need. Now, here's why we have these behemoths. They were built in the years when gas was plentiful, when gas was cheap. Didn't matter about weight. The bigger your car, the better. Everybody wanted a bigger car. They wanted something that was more of a behemoth. Something that was faster. They always wanted it faster. Not slower. They wanted it faster. They wanted it so that it was more quiet inside. They wanted it so... And these cars that I'm talking about right now in those years would not have had any market whatsoever. No need for them. We had new infrastructure all across America. We had smooth paved roads. Just go out and buy your big Oldsmobile. This is what we had, you know, and that's what everybody wanted, was a big Oldsmobile. You know, a big Cadillac. Because we had no need for something like this. And there was a need for speed back then. They always wanted to go faster, have a bigger V8. First set of 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, and then the biggest V8 you could get. 455 cubic inches. Oh yeah, make it bigger. We want speed. They wanted to be able to go down the highway with a smooth ride at 80 miles an hour. And this was the car that was going to sell. But in the future, that's not the car that's going to sell. And the reason why is because our infrastructure is not going to be capable of supporting those kind of speeds. If you go down the highway at those kind of speeds, the first pothole is going to take you out. This is the world we're headed toward. And with gasoline in such tight supply in the future and such high prices, you can't afford to feed a big Oldsmobile anymore. So there's going to be a need for these cars. And this is why these factories that spring up out of nowhere, build these cars, are going to take over the automobile industry. From the behemoth automobile manufacturers we have now. Now, these automobile manufacturers we have now better get on board and get on board fast and start to get into their drawing rooms where they draw the new cars and stuff, and get ahead of these smaller companies that are springing up that'll take the market away. Because things are changing. Things are changing, folks. The world's changing, and we need to change and adapt with it. And the automobile manufacturing industry needs to change and adapt too, because this is going to come on us so fast, this is going to come on us with the crash. And if they're not prepared for it, well, they're just going to be out of business. Because these old behemoths are just not going to be selling like they used to. In fact, sales of cars across the United States right now is dropping off a cliff. They should take this as a warning, the automobile manufacturers, of what's coming in the future for them. And they should get into their drawing rooms as fast as they can and start to outstrip these other guys that are inventing these new cars with independent suspension, with bicycle-type tires. They need to reverse their way of thinking. They need to get out of these behemoths as fast as they can and get into making us something that's renewable and sustainable for the environment and for the new world that we're moving into. Thank you guys for listening to this show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.